Welcome, everyone, to the Boiling Point Podcast. I am your host, JD, and this is episode 97, the 2022 midterm elections. I am joined by two guests for tonight's episode. The first, he is the owner of America's Tribune, David Rooslet, and my returning champion, who is the host of the Patriot Edda podcasts, Matt Simmons. And, of course, you can find americastribune.com. You can also search him on Facebook and Twitter. Patriot Edda is also available on Facebook and Twitter. Marcus Frederiksen played us in. Make sure you go check out his music at reverbnation.com/Marcus Frederiksen as he plays us in and out of every episode on the Boiling Point Podcast. And, of course, make sure hopefully you are watching this on our Rumble channel because too many strikes on YouTube again, and that we can't be posting anything to that. Rumble.com/C/the Boiling Point Podcast. And if you would like to support us further than liking and sharing and leaving us a comment, we have a storefront, bonfire.com/store/the Boiling Point Podcast. Dave and Matt, welcome to the Boiling Point Podcast. Matt, you're a returning guest. Dave, I think this is your first time.
If he's returning guest, returning champion, I think you called him. I guess that would make me the challenger.
Yes, that's right. That is how it works on the Boiling Point Podcast when we have more than one guest. One is usually the returning champion, and the other two are the challengers. We got a very important episode to get to. Lots of important information regarding the midterm elections, including a little bit later, we're going to talk about the state legislature elections and how they can start affecting the elections regardless of what the actual vote is. And Dave will be taking points on that, but that'll be a little bit later on. First thing we're going to go to is Pennsylvania. This is going to be their primary focus because it is a lot of things happening in Pennsylvania is happening all over the rest of the country, and I live in Pennsylvania. There's three major elections going on in Pennsylvania for this: the governor, lieutenant governor, and state senator. The state senator race is Dr. Mehmet Oz, Republican, and John Fetterman, the Democrat. And I just want to say right off the top, you guys don't live in this state, so you probably didn't get any of these ads. But in terms of ads, I've been seeing at a 15-to-1 ratio Fetterman over Mehmet Oz in the ads.
That's every state. Every state up here in New Hampshire.
That's every state.
That's crazy to me. I think that it's that big. I can't believe how many ads I've seen from Fetterman.
Well, put it this way, dude. Here in West Virginia, I haven't gotten a single text or email campaign from a single Republican in this state, but almost daily I get stuff from Democrats. Almost daily.
Yeah, the Democrats are really going hard at some of these elections. Let's talk about the Oz and Fetterman election first. I watched the debate, and we're going to talk about that. That's where they go over lots of points. Mehmet Oz, I think I got some opinions for him and some advice. And by the way, Mehmet Oz, if you do like my ideas, next time you are doing a debate, please reach out. I am available if you need a debate coach because I think you dodged some questions just because you didn't want to answer. And I think that was pretty blatant and clear that you were dodging some questions.
I disagree.
Saying that you, Mehmet Oz, can't afford anything is the most ridiculous statement that I've ever heard you say, and you should stop saying it immediately.
I want to touch his wiener.
And
I don't think
no
God
works
any
really
questions.
well when they're asking you a direct question. When the moderator's asking you a direct question, yes and no work really well. Do you guys?
I disagree. 100% disagree.
Okay, let's hear about it then. Go ahead.
Well, what areas do you think he dodged the questions on? Like which areas do you think he didn't answer very well? I thought he was very clear and concise.
Well, you know what? Let's Social Security. This is something we talked about before we started filming the episode, and it was good we did so that we could clarify and make the segment not take so long. But on Social Security, he said, I didn't really care for his answer as someone, and I know politics better than the average person, and I didn't really care for his answer on Social Security. I don't think he really he made it clear to the average voter what his position is. Now, when you and I talked, you clarified his position and explained it to me, and I didn't even understand it. And I know politics better than most. So, and I do agree with your answer. I do like his answer. but I don't think he reiterated it to the average voter the way he needed to. But
it was the answer is very simple, and he stated it very simply. He said he's not going to touch it. He's not for touching it. The only thing that he's for is increasing it, and that's it. That would be increasing any percentage that's actually going from our paychecks into it. Very simple.
So I'm gonna caveat off of Dave, because I agree with Dave. I don't agree with that assessment either. You gotta keep in mind that over the course of, let's say, the last decade, these debates have been so heavily swayed in the favor of Democrats that they've created such an atmosphere that there's just ridiculous questions that get asked to the other candidate. So when it comes to a lot of these questions, the opposition tends to just give simple, to the point answers, because they don't want to deal with the bullshit, because the media the next day is going to take his words and completely flip them around. So I agree with Dave. I don't think he was dodging questions. I think he was dodging the aftermath of what the media was going to try and do to him. He offered really good, precise answers.
You bring up another good point, Matt. Let's talk about that. How the follow up. They followed up with. They asked Mehmet Oz follow up questions on many different topics. Fetterman got asked maybe one or two clarifying points. That was it. It was heavily favored to Mehmet Oz on re-clarifying his position or asking a follow-up. Do you think that's what you were talking about just now, right? About how it's skewed towards Democrats.
Yeah.
Listen, as we push forward through this, just a disclaimer, everybody here understands that the guy did have a stroke, so we're just throwing that out there. So when we're criticizing him, because people are going to say dumb shit. When we're criticizing him, it's because it's deserving. But at the same time, we understand that his brain is half fried.
And my concern that I'm going to demonstrate in this episode is for his concern. I am genuinely concerned for John Fetterman. I think the people around him are not looking out for him. I don't think they have his best in mind when they're making decisions.
I mean, well, look at
Dave.
Let me give one example. And it's kind of a sports example. There's some people who experience, tragedies in life, and they can still function. A great example of that is a pitcher back in the day for the Baltimore Orioles named Jim Abbott.
Oh, I really had Jim Abbott.
Jim Abbott had one arm, right?
Yep. I know who Jim Abbott is.
That didn't stop him from playing baseball. The dude had a cannon of an arm, and he used to keep his glove right here. He found ways to get around his disability, right?
Exactly.
Still dominant in what he had to do. When I watched Fetterman, I didn't see somebody who was dominating.
No, I didn't see someone who was capable of overcoming.
The tools that he needs, that fastball, that curveball, all of the things that he needs, they weren't available for him.
No,
he struggled. He struggled in very, very minute areas, very few areas where you could probably chalk it up to the fact that he did just have a stroke. But overall, like Dave just said, he struggled substantially. When you're looking at a debate, it's almost like a fist fight. Who's got the upper hand? Who's throwing the most punches? Who can counter? Who can move? You know what I mean? And Fetterman just wasn't doing that. So Dave, I agree with you, man.
If Jim Abbott went out and got on the pitcher's mound and got shellacked at the game, they wouldn't just keep throwing him out there.
Yeah.
Dude
I would also like to point out.
Listen. If Fetterman was on a pitcher's mound, he'd be out there throwing softball pitches.
Yeah. And if I could comment on both, overcoming challenges but also realizing your own limitations. You know what I mean? I've overcome a lot of challenges being in a wheelchair, but I'm never going to be the star quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just not going to happen. Okay. Never.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that Fetterman wants to continue to try and run, but I don't think that he's capable. And I don't think the people around him have his best interest in mind.
Look at the president of the United States. It should be no surprise.
Exactly. Another perfect example, because sometimes I see Joe Biden speak, and sometimes I'm like, dang, man, is like anybody concerned that you are just not there at all?
Well, he was displaying that guy. He was displaying that.
That guy is a mixture between a fucking inbred fiddler player and The Shining. I'm just saying. Square
Dave,
like
go
a
ahead.
pig, boy.
You were saying something, Dave. Go ahead.
Sorry, Dave.
Oh, just that Joe Biden was displaying all of this when they were debating, when he was debating with Trump.
Well, Dave, both of you will probably agree with this. We know Joe Biden is not driving the ship.
Yeah.
Hell, he's
no way.
not even driving himself. Like,
No,
he's not fucking there.
No.
Kamala Harris isn't doing it. So somebody else. A lot of people like to say Obama, but I disagree.
I think it would be more Kamala Harris.
So what I want to look at too is I think it's interesting that you brought up the point in particular of Social Security. So think about this for a minute. Is that what they're putting all over your airwaves right now? Social Security, that they want to blow up Social Security, right? That Oz wants to blow up Social Security.
I see where this is going.
Because that's what they're putting on our airwaves up here for Don Bolduc. And if you go down to Arizona, that's what they're putting on their airwaves down there. It has nothing to do with what the candidate's about. It's just a message that they just keep repeating in every single state as propaganda.
Every ad that I see for John Fetterman that is an attack ad against Mehmet Oz completely distorts every single one of his positions. It's not all Social Security, but almost. I mean, it's crime, it's Social Security, it's almost every major issue. I've seen commercials for John Fetterman, and the attack ads against Mehmet Oz completely distort his positions.
And it's not just on Social Security. Like abortion is the other thing that they're making all their ads on. So you got abortion ads out there right now in every single state running against every single Republican. And what are they saying? That the Republican is for making a national ban on abortion, that every single Republican wants to make a national ban on abortion. Right. And if you elect this Republican, if you elect Don Bolduc in New Hampshire, if you elect Mehmet Oz,
vote. It all rests on
exactly. When the reality is just the opposite. Most of the Republicans are not for an amendment.
You guys ever seen that video where it's a compilation of news agencies across the country, and every single news anchor is saying the same thing?
Yeah.
It'll start with 1, and then it'll start with go to 2, then 3, then 4. It's the same fucking thing, dude.
I have it queued up.
Dude. It's the same. It's the same thing.
Let me, since we were just talking about Mehmet Oz and how all the ads are distorting what his position is, let me do a quick rapid fire and give our viewers his positions on a few things. And then we're going to go to a couple of clips that we have about that with the debate.
We're going to do clips.
Yep, we got some clips. All right, so on abortion, Mehmet Oz is on the same position that I am on abortion, and that is where it resides within the states. The states should be deciding abortion, and that is what constitutionally what should be happening.
Wait, I thought Fetterman said that he was for a national ban. Isn't that what Fetterman said?
That's what Fetterman said, but that's not his
say.
Mehmet Oz's
he absolutely said that.
The states resides within the states, and the states should decide how abortion is handled.
We should just stick to calling him Anton LaVey.
He is pro-fracking. He is pro-gun. He's against sanctuary cities, which I'm also with him.
Oz is actually pro-fracking now. Oz used to be against fracking.
Oh, really?
He's right. Yeah, he's right on that.
Okay.
Oz used to be against fracking because he's a doctor, and I don't know if most of you guys have seen the documentary that was done a while ago when fracking was a big ordeal, where people were turning their faucets on and the water that was coming out of the faucet was lighting on fire.
Yeah.
That caused huge health concerns all over the country, where companies like Halliburton were buying up all of this land to do their fracking, and the areas around that land were having all kinds of issues with the gas.
Because it seeped into the water lines.
Yeah.
So as a doctor, obviously was at that time was against fracking. He switched his position, obviously, because fracking is a lot of jobs for the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, it is actually, and he wants to. And also, let's come back to the fracking because we got a clip on the fracking. Mehmet Oz is against forgiving student loan debt. He is against expanding the Supreme Court. He is pro filibuster. So now let's go back to the fracking for a minute. What are your guys? Do you guys have a position on fracking?
I mean, there's only one position to really have. the United States needs to be energy independent. And I can go off on a fucking substantial tangent when it comes to this. You know, most of our oil does indeed come from overseas, Saudi Arabia. Look what they're doing right now. You know, they're withholding more and more from us. And of course, be going into fucking Obama number two's term. What's the first thing he did? All his executive orders shut down renewing leases on.
Yep. And Biden's done the same thing.
Exactly. And now look where we're sitting as far as gas prices. Yeah, they've come down a little bit. We had the summer push.
Yeah.
But we should always be pushing for American independence when it comes to energy. Fracking is just one of those things. Listen, I know a lot of people say that it's not good for the environment. 99% of the shit that we do as human beings is not good for the environment, including our sewage. Our sewage runoffs are just as bad as fucking fracking, and people don't want to admit that. Let's talk about landfills where does all our trash go? Where's all our trash go?
I agree that some of these are necessary evils. But I think that at this point we should try to, if there's an area that's going to be fracked, an area that they know has a good, a shale basin with the natural gas.
Yep.
Then all of that land around it needs to be purchased and cordoned off because it's.
I agree.
Safe.
Yeah, there is a safe way to frack.
I agree with that.
All of the groundwater, everything needs to be 100% monitored.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a safe way of fracking, and I do believe that fracking is good for our country as long as it's done safely in the right way.
I mean,
and I also think
it's a hell of a lot better than going and farming lithium batteries.
Yeah. Everybody go look at a picture of a mine, of a piece of land before and then after it was stripped for lithium batteries for all the electric cars.
Just take a look at Brazil.
And also, think about how these hundreds of millions of dollars that we send to Saudi Arabia and the Middle Eastern countries for our oil. Wouldn't it be better if American companies and American jobs were getting that money?
If you want a solid snapshot of what's going to happen in the United States if we don't start drilling, baby, drill, take a look at Europe right now.
Yeah.
Take a look at the European Union right now and what Russia has done with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and the Nord Stream pipeline. Europe is about to experience a horrible winter.
Yeah, really bad. They're going to have a really bad one.
That we have reserves.
Dave and I, go ahead.
Most people don't know our reserves are not so that you can fill your fucking truck up at the gas station. Our oil reserves are supposed to be for our military.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
But go ahead, JD.
Dave and I actually have an episode coming up in about a week and a half where we're going to talk about what's happening in Europe and Russia with the oil and gas and all that. So
you guys know I did a video back in 2014 that explains everything that you're just talking about.
I know you did it. I know you did it.
First, getting up and running, I talk about the Nabucco pipeline, which is the pipeline all the Europeans built that ends in Turkey, and how they were trying to wean themselves off of Russian gas because the Russians were signing all of these gas deals with the European countries. And all of those leaders, when they signed those deals with Russia, there was no competition. And
exactly
that gas had to go through Ukraine. All of it had to go through Ukraine. So in order for Russia to bring gas to Europe, Ukraine was the only way that they could get it there. So they, when Ukraine started making noise about they wanted a discount for the gas going through there, that's when Russia started building the other pipelines through Belarus and Nord Stream 2.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about that heavily next week in an episode. And regarding the global warming issue, I refer you to the Boiling Point podcast episodes, the global warming series that we're doing. Go check those out. We're going to show a clip now. This is going to be Fetterman's position on fracking, and it's also a perfect example of why he may not be there in the head.
So you want me to cue the clip, the first clip?
Yeah.
Okay. So here we go.
Republican governors in the South have been sending migrants to Democratic-run cities and states without a plan or without any coordination. It is certainly gaining a lot of attention, but is it an effective way to deal with the influx of migrants? You have 60 seconds.
Lisa, we have a catastrophe at the border, and we should not have sanctuary cities as John Fetterman has tried to introduce. But
Nope, I
I've
think this is
been
the wrong
into
clip.
parts of Philadelphia and Allentown and Reading, where we have large Latino populations. I understand.
That was
first-
what you told me to.
Should be the first. Should be the first one.
That's you told me to put the 3341 first and the.
No, the 29 to 29:30.
You didn't say.
While you're getting that pulled up, I just want
What's the
everybody to
29?
look.
I'll pull it up
Yeah.
right now. Take me 2 seconds.
Look at Fetterman and tell me he does not look like Anton LaVey. I'm just saying, founder of the Satanic Church. That's Anton
Okay,
LaVey.
2930.
The statement you read. There are multiple pictures of him signing.
We
a
have to go.
moratorium.
We have to move on.
But we have to get the
No,
fundamental.
it should be 29 to 29:30.
Okay. 29 to 2930.
I like turtles.
We're gonna cut some of this out, so it's all good.
No, don't cut any of it out. It's genuine, dude.
All right. Here's 29.
All right.
You're saying tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, I don't support fracking at all. So how do you square the two?
I support fracking, and I support fracking, and I stand, and I support.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. On to
Sorry,
the
Lisa.
So yeah, that's Fetterman on his position on fracking. It's
That
terrible.
is,
It's terrible.
That is Jim Abbott out on the pitcher's mound rolling the ball for the catcher.
Yeah.
That's all, folks.
Yeah. Really.
The,
So
the
these
really
sports-
scary thing is there's actually people out there voting for this guy.
I know.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this episode, and please share it out because we want to make sure that it gets seen as by as many people as possible. This is not a guy who's going to be there, just like Joe Biden.
He's not a guy that's going to be working for you. He's not the guy that's going to be striking batters out for you. He's not
I wish you had the video where he said he was 100% against fracking.
Oh, I must have missed that part. I mean, it was a lot. I was doing a lot of stuff last night, so when I was going through, I went back and.
But I don't know. Looking at him up on stage, this guy should have bailed out a long time ago. It's sad.
Yeah, well, look at it. Look at him at some of his press conferences. Anytime so this is where I did a little bit of research today, right? So Fetterman was the mayor of what? Braddock, Pennsylvania, which has a population less than 2,000, right? So I did a little digging, and you know how they have city council meetings and shit like that. He only attended 1/3 of those meetings.
Yeah.
1/3 of those meetings. And the entire time that he was the mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania, he was living in his mommy and daddy's basement and living off of their fortune.
Yeah.
I mean, this is literally the version of a fucking Call of Duty bro living in his basement, jerking off to midget porn and nugget porn and running the government.
Midget porn.
Yeah, that's pretty specific there, Matt. But Dave, let's
Some of
show
my
the second
favorite.
clip. This is going to be him on crime,
Which is the second clip.
3010 to 3109. Yeah. This is Fetterman's position on crime, and yet another example of why you.
But in this race, it endorsed your Republican opponent, Mr. Oz. What is your response to those endorsements?
Anton LaVey.
What is your response to accusations that you are, quote, dangerously soft on crime? You have 60 seconds.
Now, I believe that I run on my record on crime. You know, I ran to be mayor back in 2005 in order to fight gun violence, and that's exactly what I did. And working with the police and working with our community, I was able to stop gun violence for 5.5 years as mayor. Ever accomplished before or since my time as mayor, because I'm the only person on this stage right now that is successful about pushing back against gun violence and being the community more safe. You know, all he's done is just put a plan up on his website in the last 24 hours. He has no experience. He has never made an attempt to try to address crime during his entire career, except showing up for photo ops here in Philadelphia.
I will give you 15 seconds to respond to that, and then I have a question for you.
So that's Fetterman's position on crime. Now,
Philly has one of the highest crime rates in the nation.
Braddock is crime. I found conflicting. When I was going to do a whole segment on the crime, but when I was researching it, I found conflicting reports on the history of Braddock during his tenure as mayor, and so I decided not to put it.
You notice how he mentioned Philadelphia at the end, right?
Yeah.
Philly has one of the highest crime rates in the nation.
Yeah. Now he did what I do want to give him all props due in the interest of, you know, being fair. He did when he was mayor. They did have a 5-year span where there was no gun deaths. No one was killed by a gun. No one.
Well,
was
it's kind of hard to make
here's the thing, and here's what I find to be absolutely hilarious. You have a guy here who he's 100% for banning guns. He's for taking away all your guns. But one of the things that they actually mentioned in this debate was that he pulled a gun on a black guy that he thought was stealing, and put a shotgun to his chest.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I read that article today.
I did not. I completely missed that article. I did not actually get to see that article. I'm sorry. I can't believe.
So here's a guy who doesn't want you to have a gun, but he has no problem having a gun.
Yeah.
Especially if he's going to wrongfully accuse somebody, a black person.
Well, but this is what they do. Rules for thee, but not for me.
Yeah.
This is what they do.
That's what the Democrats do. That is pretty much what they run on.
I just want to listen. I just want to point out the fact that I saw his face in that clip, and I can see his face on a Lemonhead box. I'm just saying. He looks like a Lemonhead. I can't stand that guy, man. Every single time he talks, not only does it remind me of Biden, but it reminds me of Hillary. It reminds me of AOC. It reminds me of Obama. Every fucking Democrat that you can think of, that's what he reminds me of, because he's not there politically. He's not there mentally. He's given his talking points, and he just runs with it.
He's there for the get a seat.
You have something, Dave? Go ahead.
No, he's just there for the party to gain.
Exactly.
Another vote.
And you know what? Just to caveat off that, Dave's right. He's there for a party seat, and there's a lot of voters out there that don't give a shit about his history and him as an individual, his intellectual concepts, his articulation. They don't care about his policies. They're going to see that Fetterman is a Democrat, and they're going to be like, that's my guy. Meanwhile, he's up there looking like Anton LaVey trying to burn the entire country. Fuck him.
Since I did some quick positions on Oz, let me give some quick positions on John Fetterman, and then we will get ready to move on to something different in the episode here. All right. So
you guys like Dave's Birdhouse?
He won't release his medical records regarding the stroke, which he could do. He could release them to other doctors who could comment on his whether or not he's capable of doing this, and not release them to the public. The whole public doesn't need access to his medical records. He could release them privately to a handful of doctors, but he won't even do that. On minimum wage, at least in the debate, he has an incoherent position. He didn't string enough words together for me to be able to understand his position on minimum wage. His position on abortion is pro Roe v. Wade, but he doesn't understand what Roe v. Wade is, so he really doesn't have a position on abortion. And let me refer you to episode 87 of the Boiling Point podcast, Roe v. Wade. in which Matt and I discuss Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, I went into this in depth substantially. Do you care if I caveat on that just real quick?
Oh, go ahead.
It's funny that he takes such a hardline stance and he's pro Roe versus Wade, but that's like, dude, that's the meat and potatoes of the Democratic Party. But what they don't realize is Roe v. Wade actually added more restrictions to abortion than the recent Supreme Court ruling because it banned abortions in the second and third trimester.
Yeah.
So he's actually advocating for more abortion restrictions.
Yeah. Again,
More
people don't understand. People don't understand what Roe v. Wade did. Let me refer you to episode 87. We give a clear, we fully explain what Roe v. Wade means, and it's a great episode. Also, episode 89, if you want further conversation on it, that one was with Pastor Gavin.
I don't think I saw that episode, but I wonder if you guys actually mentioned the fact that when Roe v. Wade was put forth and was ruled on, Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually commented and said it would.
I mentioned it.
Yeah, we did.
Yep, she was against it. She was against Roe v. Wade because she said it was bad case law.
Yeah, and we explain when we use the Constitution to explain how Roe v. Wade is also just unconstitutional. Federal government has no position in abortion.
You put a few bullets in there, and there's one that I'm really interested in, and maybe we'll get some comments on the video when you post this. I'm curious what y'all stand. What is your stance, both of y'all, on minimum wage?
All right, leave us a comment on what your position is on minimum wage. We'll have Matt and Dave on again to talk about it if we get some comments. So leave some comments. Fetterman is also pro fracking, but he was against it before the stroke. I don't think he remembers what his positions were before the stroke. I think he had the stroke, he came out of it, and all of the people around him were like, "This is your position."
No, I disagree with that. I think he knows exactly what his stance was. And I think he's trying to earn the vote because he knows in Pennsylvania, fracking is such an important part of the Pennsylvania economy. He knows that, just like Biden did. Biden went to Pennsylvania and essentially did the same thing, said he was pro-fracking. What did Biden do as soon as he took office? He's trying to get votes. He's trying to get the independents that are on the fence, like, well, my job depends on this. Oh, he's pro-fracking. I'm going to go ahead and vote for him. And then, just like Biden, he's going to bend him over and fuck him. I think he knows exactly what his stance was.
Well, you're giving him more credit of being in control of his faculties than I think he has.
Well, devil's advocate, he could use that to his advantage, and he knows that.
Yeah, true.
Democrats also fund all of the activists who are attempting to bankrupt all of these fracking sites with lawsuits and holding up permits to do all of these things. So, I mean, he can say that he's for it all he wants, and then, the Democrats come in on the other side and they shut everything down.
Bingo.
All right. He's also pro debt forgiveness. He's against stacking the court, which is an obscene position for a Democrat. Aren't they? Isn't that part of the line? You have to be for stacking the court to be a Democrat these days, I thought. And he is against the filibuster, which I also found interesting.
So, devil's advocate on the court packing. It's kind of a position on both sides.
Yeah, if the Republicans control everything, then I'm sure the Democrats are not for court packing.
Yeah, true.
I'm just saying, and if the Republicans could stack the court, Garen fucking they're going to.
Here's the difference. When the Republicans have control, which they did, they didn't pack the court. They didn't even think about packing the court. They used the regular laws that were available to them. They didn't try and circumvent laws. They went with the laws that were available to them. And Donald Trump was able to put 3 justices into their seats.
Well, I agree and disagree because what's her name? Brain fart. Anyways, Kavanaugh. He put Kavanaugh on. Obviously, we know what the Democrats did. Yeah.
Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett. There it is. So Kavanaugh was actually a huge proponent for the Patriot Act. So I'm iffy on that. When it comes to Amy Coney Barrett, there's a lot of rulings as of recently where I kind of question where she's standing.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about where they stand. I'm talking about how they took
How they put them on the court.
On the Supreme Court. They didn't have to circumvent any laws. They used the laws that were existing. And when a seat became vacant, Donald Trump filled it. He didn't try to say, hey, we need to.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying. They're not trying to expand the court. I see what you're saying. Okay. No, yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
The Republicans took control of the Supreme Court.
Okay. Yeah, no.
Supreme Court. It's more of a conservative court because 3 justices left while Trump was in office.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
You think that was?
I just want to throw it out there. Ketanji Jackson, fuck her. She's a black activist.
Dave? Do you think that was? Orchestrated? The 3 justices that Trump put on, or was that just?
I believe Democrats had a great strategy before when they actually asked. I want to say it was Ruth Ginsburg to step down. And the liberal judges to step down because they knew that they were getting up there in age. Right. They knew if the Republicans took control that they would have to be 4 years, or if they weren't, then they would lose control of the Supreme Court.
So unpopular opinion, as much as I dislike Ruth, she actually did a lot of good as well. Yeah, and I think that goes unnoticed quite a bit because she really did do a lot for women's rights. Yeah, and I think that goes unnoticed.
She does a lot for the Constitution too. She did a lot regarding based on the Constitution. A lot of her decisions.
But
yes. So
I'm glad her ass got replaced.
The big question about Ruth Ginsburg would be where would Ruth Ginsburg sit on men beating women in women's sports?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's the question of the year.
Yeah. Make sure you check out that. I have an episode. The Boiling Point Podcast has an episode regarding men in women's sport also. So make sure you go check that out on our channel.
You had it was a 3-part article that you did.
And a 3-part article on americastribune.com where I write about men in women's sports. The article is really great because I cover it from 3 different kind of points of views. I cover it from 3 different ways. The episode is episode 88, Trans Women Dominating Women's Sports. And so check those out.
So Dave, I'm not gonna lie. I'd kind of be curious to see what her opinion on the Roe versus Wade ruling would be as well, because she was actually, like you said, she was against Roe v. Wade because it was poor case law. I'd be curious to see what she said.
I think she
would have stood her ground as a liberal. She would have stood her ground as a Democrat.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
She would have voted that way.
Interesting. All right. We got the last clip. Let's show the last clip that we have from the debate, from the Fetterman Oz debates. This clip is a good example of how I think Dr. Oz spent too much time on his opponent's position. And then, of course, it is yet another example of how Fetterman is literally not able to form sentences.
Republican governors in the South have been sending migrants to Democratic-run cities and states without a plan or without any coordination. It is certainly gaining a lot of attention, but is it an effective way to deal with the influx of migrants? You have 60 seconds.
Lisa, we have a catastrophe at the border, and we should not have sanctuary cities as John Fetterman has tried to introduce. But I've been into the parts of Philadelphia and Allentown and Reading where we have large Latino populations. I understand the challenges of the border. My father was an immigrant. My mother were immigrants. I understand what legal immigration offers us, but the completely porous, open nature of our border, which John Fetterman supports, has created a humanitarian crisis with cartels profiting with human trafficking operations. They take the money, they buy narcotics from China and bring that into our country, and it's making every state a border state. Pennsylvania is already a border state because we're top 3 in the country in fentanyl overdoses. Lisa, I can't go anywhere where, giving a big event where I don't meet multiple people people who say their personal lives have been destroyed because of fentanyl overdoses. Yet John Fetterman not only wants an open border, not only supports sanctuary cities, but he wants to legalize all hard drugs in America, including narcotics. That is, I mean, out of touch with everybody. That radical position was tried in Oregon, which he endorsed, 50% homicide increase rate.
Oh, one moment. I will give a 15-second rebuttal.
Yeah, that is.
Oh, well, we wanted the 15-second rebuttal.
Okay, going back. Hang on.
Again, the Oz rule. That is just not true. Here his family's company was levied the largest fine for immigration hiring of immigrant illegals. And I think you should sit this one out about in terms of what a secure border.
All right, we do have a follow-up specifically.
There you go.
I know he fumbled with his words a little bit, but I get what he's trying to say. And
Right.
it's at least we can kind of understand where his perspective is going. He might not be able to orate his thoughts as well as he used to, or like I haven't even looked up clips of him speaking before he had the stroke, so I don't know how he used to speak or what he used to sound like.
Well, I'll play
I'll
devil's advocate and caveat off of that. How many times did Oz write prescriptions for prescription medications, opioids? So I mean, yeah, I get it. I get where he was going with that. But it still sounded like soup salad.
Yeah. It's not about that wasn't about Fetterman's position. It was just about how he can't even he doesn't even have the ability to put his words together to form complete sentences at this time. And I know we all fumble with words sometimes, but you can see he's reaching out there to think about what
but
words.
usually I'm drunk when that happens.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, usually you're.
And I'm still trying to find what you were saying in your opening statement that Oz didn't answer the questions and he was spending too much time focusing on Fetterman. But every time he talked about Fetterman's position, he still talked about his own position in
I agree.
every single one of the issues that he was addressing.
I stand corrected, perhaps on the issue of him, skirting around answers. Maybe I just saw it differently, or maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention. I don't have a problem with being wrong, unlike most people.
Not that he didn't, like, he definitely was putting Fetterman's position out there, but he was putting his position out there because the reality of his position is different than what he was saying.
Right.
Position.
Not only that, but it made Oz's position more substantial.
I don't know. I see what that, and regarding whether or not he skirted answers, at least I do think he spent too much time talking about Fetterman's position on things.
Well, I think that's every debate though, because I mean, that's
but
just
I
how
want them to
debates
get better.
go.
That's why I'm offering this advice to them. I want them to get better at debates. So that's why I offered my.
I don't think it's wrong if they're pointing out that these people are lying about about their stances. Like if Fetterman's on there, and his stance and all of the stuff that he's putting out is a complete lie. If he said that he wasn't for fracking and now he's up on stage talking about how he loves fracking, of course Fetterman's kind of out, Oz is going to point out, and he was pretty adamant with the moderator he was like, look, we have to talk about this. He's lying.
That's true.
Right.
He was trying to put it in the context of that he was lying. You're right. Yeah.
So everything, when Oz is grilling Fetterman on here, it's each time he does it, it's based off of a lie that has been told and spread, whether it's a lie that Fetterman told about his position or if it's a lie that Fetterman told about Oz's position.
Well, leave us a comment.
I'll agree with that. I agree with that.
Leave us a comment. How do you think the debate was between Oz and Fetterman? Do you think Oz did a good job? And I do think Oz won the debate.
Fetterman got his ass handed to him easily.
Yeah.
I thought the greatest thing about the debate was the fact that Oz maintained his composure and didn't go for the throat because it would have been easy to.
Oh yeah. I agree.
You know, Oz wasn't up there. Oz didn't
funny
make
is-
a spectacle of him fumbling over his words.
Listen, even Democrats are calling out that debate and giving Fetterman hell right now. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth, but he's catching a lot of flack from his own constituents.
Yeah, and Oz did do a good job at restraining himself from not making, hammering a guy who's already.
But then again, Fetterman's a guy that just came back from the dead. He looks like Anton LaVey. I'm just saying.
All right. We're going to move on now. The governorship is Josh Shapiro and Doug Mastriano. I'm not going to go too much into their positions because it kind of is going to lead us into what Dave's segment is going to be here about the House legislatures. There's something happening in multiple states with the House legislatures in the midterm elections. It's very, very important information. And this is likely going to be its own segment separate from the episode as well.
I do want to show that Fetterman has a book out, and
yes, I was right.
Well, there we go.
He does, man. He looks like Anton LaVey.
Did you guys want to take an intermission before we move to the next segment, or are we good to go?
Yeah, I gotta take a piss.
Then we're going to take a quick break.
I'm not around, have you found? I'm always on you.